Hey, what's going on everybody? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the ZOTAC Gaming NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070 Twin Edge GPU. Now straight off the bat, I'm not sure why I went so long without picking up an RTX 4070 because I've been doing some testing over the past couple days and this thing is a great performer. I mean, everything that I've thrown at it, it's been able to handle it just fine. And since we're working with a 40 series RTX card, we have access to DLSS 3, ray tracing, and AI in gaming, like NVIDIA's frame generation. Basically, it uses AI to upscale the resolution by creating new frames and inserting them in between the already rendered GPU frames. And with DLSS 3 and frame generation, you can get up to 4 times performance in certain games. And I'm really excited to show you what this RTX 4070 can do, and we've been seeing a lot of these cards on the market that are pretty huge. This one here is a dual slot card. It's not quite mini ITX, but it's a lot smaller than others on the market. And this only requires one 8-pin PCIe connector, so I think this is going to be great for smaller form factor builds. Metal backplate, dual fan design, and this utilizes ZOTAC's IceStorm 2.0 advanced cooling system, so it'll keep this thing nice and chilly even at those higher wattages. The ZOTAC Gaming GeForce RTX 4070 that we have here is the non-overclocked edition, but we're still going to see some awesome performance. And when it comes to the overall specs, with this we get 5,888 CUDA cores, 12 gigabytes of GDDR6X VRAM running at a 192-bit bus, utilizes a PCIe 4.0 x16 interface. Again, we've got the IceStorm 2.0 advanced cooling system with freeze fan stop, so this fan doesn't need to spin all the time. It uses active fan control, so while this thing is at idle, not pulling any power, those fans will completely stop spinning. We also have some Spectra RGB lighting on the side from ZOTAC, metal backplate, and of course, since it's an RTX 40 card, it supports NVIDIA's DLSS 3 with full ray tracing capabilities. After seeing what kind of performance this thing can put out, I really do think that we're going to do a small form factor build with the RTX 4070, but for this testing, we're going to put it in a much larger system. We're not going to have to worry about any kind of CPU bottleneck or anything like that, but if you're interested in a smaller form factor build with this card, let me know in the comments below. Personally, I think it's a good looking card, like that Spectra RGB on the side. It doesn't overdo everything, it's just a little bit to kind of get you by, and it actually goes really well with a full white build. It's not bad, it doesn't stand out at all. In this video, we're going to be testing the card out, we're going to run some benchmarks, we're going to test out some AAA gaming, and I want to show off some of the features here, like DLSS 3, NVIDIA Reflex, and even frame generation. I also want to just give you an idea of what kind of specs we're working with. I have paired this 4070 up with a pretty powerful rig. Alright, so here we are. I've been up and running with this system for a little while now, and this RTX 4070 is an awesome performer. We're definitely going to take a look at some benchmarks and some gameplay here. Real quick, I've got this paired up with an Intel Core i7-14700K. I've also got 32 gigabytes of DDR5 running at 7200 megahertz. And the TGP on this RTX 4070 is rated at 200 watts. I've been seeing that kind of draw in gaming at 1440p with RTX on, but around 150, just 1440p high ultra gaming. Not too bad. The first thing I wanted to take a look at were some GPU benchmarks, and first up we've got 3D Mark Firestrike. Got a total score here of 40,729 with a graphics score of 44,695. So far, looking really good. And next up, we've got a ray tracing test. I just used 3D Mark's Port Royal. Total score, 11,139. And finally, we've got Time Spy with an 18,489, with a graphics score of 17,881. I mean, this score here, just with these synthetics, is on par with some other higher-end cards that I've tested that are capable of 4K. And I'm sure we could run a lot of stuff at 4K on this, but through my testing, we're going to go with 1440p. We're going to mess around with the settings and see exactly what this thing can do. And we're going to start out strong here with Cyberpunk 2077. 1440p Ultra, no ray tracing and no resolution scale, so we're not using DLSS right now. I'm seeing an average of around 68 FPS here. This is really good, but we can get much more out of it using DLSS. So we're going to introduce just a bit. I'm going to take DLSS to auto. Cyberpunk does a great job of kind of knowing exactly where to go with it. And now, Ultra DLSS set to auto 1440p. We can get an average of around 103 FPS out of Cyberpunk 2077. That's a huge jump in performance, and to my eye, I can't tell a difference. I've actually got a really high-end monitor here. It's a 4K monitor. Obviously, we're running this at 1440p, but with DLSS set to auto, I don't notice a difference. Now, if I had them side by side, I could probably spot a few things here and there, but overall, it still looks absolutely amazing. Now, one thing I really wanted to test out with this RTX 4070 was ray tracing. We're going to go to Ray Tracing Ultra with Cyberpunk 2077. We've still got DLSS set to auto, and you will need some DLSS while using ray tracing with this game. But with a setup like this, RTX on at Ultra, we're getting an average of around 84 FPS throughout. This is some phenomenal performance here out of this little GPU. But with all of these new DLSS technologies from NVIDIA, we can get a lot more out of it. I'm going to be using the same settings, 1440p, Ultra Ray Tracing. I'll leave DLSS Super Resolution at Auto, but we're going to go ahead and enable DLSS Ray Reconstruction. This will enhance the image quality by generating high-quality pixels between sampled rays. Plus, we've got DLSS Frame Generation, and this is something we'll talk about a little more when we get over to another game. Basically, this uses AI to render additional frames without compromising image quality. But once we have these enabled and get back in the game, you'll see we've got a nice little boost in the FPS. If you remember, we averaged around 84 FPS with these off, but now we're up to an average of 111 FPS. I just wanted to move over here with some of those neon lighting effects. Just take a look at those reflections. A bit different from ray tracing, with this card we also have access to path tracing as long as the game supports it. So from the settings here, we're going to head down to our ray tracing section, enable path tracing, and once we apply it, you'll see all of our other ray tracing options disappear, at least in this game here. Go back in the game, we're now using path tracing instead of ray tracing. Now NVIDIA does have a really good write-up over on their website kind of explaining everything. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave a link in the description. But in my opinion, in brighter situations, path tracing is definitely the way to go. But it does come at a cost to performance. Next on the list, we've got Spider-Man Miles Morales, and keep in mind, with Spider-Man Remastered, you're going to see the same kind of performance. And going into this game, we're at very high settings, 1440p with no DLSS. We will test that in just a second. But we've got a few extra things that we can enable here. We've got frame generation. This uses AI to generate extra frames in between the frames that have already been generated. And it can definitely lead to a smoother experience. In fact, this game here will run at 82 FPS on average, 4K, very high settings with no DLSS. I'm just at 1440p to show you what we can get. And we got an average of 172 FPS. But for those out there looking for a much higher frame rate, we can enable DLSS. And for this, I'm actually going to go to balanced. And this can really make all the difference in the world. We're now getting an average over 200 FPS with Spider-Man Miles Morales. So if you're looking for that little extra, yeah, we've got it here with the RTX 4070 for sure. You know I had to throw one of my favorite games in here, Forza Horizon 5. We're maxed out at 1440p, extreme settings with some extras turned on. Now keep in mind with this game, when you head over to the graphics settings and go to extreme, we're still not fully maxed out. SSAO quality, reflection quality, and ray tracing quality still needs to be turned up manually to extreme. So now we've got Forza Horizon 5 maxed out with no DLSS, so we're not using any kind of resolution scale, 1440p. And this card handles this game like a champ, on average 116 FPS with no resolution scale. And I'll tell you, for me, this is more than enough, but we can get a lot more out of it using DLSS. So from the settings, we're going to enable DLSS technologies, super resolution, set this to balanced, frame generation, and reflex low latency. We're just going to enable all of this right now. Super resolution, balanced. And now we're seeing averages of around 151 FPS. So this really does make a difference. And personally, I like setting DLSS up at balanced. It's really up to you. If you want more out of it, you can go to performance. But I think balanced looks really good here, especially at 1440p. I also wanted to run Shadow of the Tomb Raider's built-in benchmark to see where we're sitting. Very high settings, no resolution scale, 1440p. We had an average of 160 FPS. I also wanted to test out God of War. We're at 1440p native resolution. We're getting an average of 94 FPS, and this is one of those games that does struggle on lower end GPUs, but with this RTX 4070, I mean, it's trucking right through. But with God of War, we do have access to DLSS. I'm going to go with balanced once again. Move back into gameplay. Remember 1440p Ultra, but this time we've got DLSS set to balanced. We're now getting an average over 100 FPS. I'm really loving this RTX 4070. I mean, everything that I've thrown at it so far has worked awesomely, and just to get some more out of it, we've got all of those DLSS technologies. And the final game I wanted to take a look at here was Minecraft. Now I know this isn't a super hard game to run, but we do have access to ray tracing, and it changes the whole dynamic of the game. So what I'm going to do is just head into our settings, graphics, we're going to enable ray tracing, and I'm also going to turn the ray tracing render distance up to 12 chunks. We could go higher here, but we're in a smaller corridor. But yeah, as you can see, I mean, it is a totally different game with ray tracing enabled. So yeah, with the ZOTAC Gaming GeForce RTX 4070 Twin Edge, I'm seeing some absolutely amazing performance here, and I'm not sure why I waited so long to go ahead and test out a 4070, but this is looking like a really strong contender for a smaller form factor build. So if you're interested in seeing a video like that, make sure you hit that like button and think about subscribing so you know when I post the next one. And if you're interested in learning a little more or maybe picking one of these RTX 4070s up, I'll leave some links in the description. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you've got any questions, let me know down below. And like always, thanks for watching.